Inspection is you want to check the minimum lining thickness. Minimum lining thickness is done by taking a depth gauge or any other type of device that you can measure the depth on. So the minimum lining thickness allowable is 1/32 above the rivet, or 0.8 millimeters above the rivet. And you want to measure that, record that on your safety standard inspection sheet. So you just basically put it over top of the rivet there and push down, and it'll tell you the depth remaining above the rivet. If it's a bonded lining, in other words it's glued here to the table, then what you would have to do is you'd have to measure from the top of the lining down to the table, and you're allowed 2/32 or 1.5 millimeters above for that style. We've got riveted linings, we've got lots of lining on there. We're going to check to make sure that the linings are tight against the table here, not rust jacked up out of the way, that the lining is solid all the way through and not cracked all the way through. A little bit of wear on a used lining is normal, just as long as it's not severe heat checking or cracking on there. Okay, so what we're doing is we're adjusting up the micrometer, and on here we have the size dimensions. So we set it to 16.5 inch, so 16 on this one, 16.5 on this one, and now in a perfect drum it will come right to 0 at 16.5, and any wear that you have will start to go this way. If it's this way on it, that means that there's more material than 16.5 inches. This way is less than 16.5 inches, or oversized, so it's been worn down. And the maximum that you're allowed to go on these drums is right here, 120 thousandths of an inch over, 0.120. So if it's more than that, the drum has to be replaced. And anywhere less than that, you know, it's going to be your call based on the rest of the drum condition. But as long as it's not over 120 thou, it can be put back into service, provided it doesn't have any other problems with it. When we load this up, it's really important. Any dial indicator that you have, if you let it spring off, this part is on a spring, if you let it come out too quick, it spins the dial around, hits a stop, and knocks it off and throws it out of calibration. So in this case, what we'd like to do is load up that end gently first, and then we'll put our other end in. And now we just move our micrometer up and down here, and in that case we've got about 25 thousandths of an inch over. You can check it in several spots if you want here and see. So there we're about 30 thousandths of an inch over size. So plenty of room, because we don't have to worry till we get over to the 125. Now when you take these out, like any dial indicator, you want to slowly unload the needle on it, otherwise you damage it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to push up on the needle a little bit. We're going to pull the bottom out and slowly release this so it doesn't spin back and break the needle off. This is one type of brake drum gauge that you'll use. There are other different methods of measuring, but this is probably your most common method. And you really need to be measuring the drums on a safety inspection. So what I'm going to do is I'm just using a large adjustable. You could use a pry bar down in here. What we'll do is we'll pop the rollers out of here first. Watch you don't get your fingers slammed in there. Now once those are off, the rollers, we can clean and inspect them. Spend the time then, clean it, look at it, examine it. This is the time to order the parts if you need it, not when it's going back together. And what we're feeling for on here is we're feeling for flat spots. And in fact, this one does have some flat spotting, minor flat spotting on it that you can feel. I would change those over. They come with the new shoes. This roller here, we want to check the edges where it wears on the table and we want to check the face for flat spotting. We do have a little bit of, you can just barely see a flat spot on there now developing. This means that we're going to wear out that. It's not going to roll when the cam turns on it, and that's what you want to do. That's why when you lubricate these, you only lubricate the edges here, never the face. If you lubricate the face, then the S-cam, as it moves on, it'll slide, and that gives you flat spot. Now we're going to take the rest of the brakes apart, and we'll inspect them on the way. Just grab onto here, and here. Let that up and off. There we go. And then just unhook that big front spring off the front. And then we'll carefully take the bottom shoe and just wind it back. And there's your primary shoe off. And then we just pop our secondary shoe off. And we can have a good look at the table here for damage on it, any cracks in the welds, and we can have a real good look at the shoe surface, which looks good, and we can have a quick look at the springs. There's no tensioning gauges to check the springs. They're just changed whenever you change the shoes. We can also check the anchor pins here. We want to make sure that these anchor pins are free and lubricated. Now these anchor pins, you can lubricate across the face of them as well as the ends, because they want to move in these bushings here in the spider, right? So if they're not moving freely, you want to press those out and then put in new ones that come with your shoe kit.